Hey, what's good, everyone? It is BQ and it is Mike here. This is the Impact Republic podcast, monthly podcast brought to you here at the Impact Lounge. Thanks for checking us out, as always. Thanks for the support. Hope you guys dig what we have in store for you guys today. Going to talk about some of the topics that are kind of hot right now, maybe to you or to us, I don't know, but stuff we think is worth talking about, and we're gonna roll with it here. I didn't do this last episode. We didn't get to do one last month because it was just a scheduling thing. But I didn't get to do this last time we did a podcast. But I wanted to give Mike the floor here real quick to kind of plug some of the things that he's got going on, so that you know how he's engraved in the fabric of Impact right now and everything. And then we'll get into the podcast. So Mike, let us know some of the things that you got going on that you're working on.
Cool, man. Thanks for letting me get my shit in. I still run the Combat Republic website. Right now it's a little bit on of a hiatus because I'm taking a couple of classes. But that's gonna be back up and running here in a couple of weeks. And my co-host for my podcast, JD Oliva, he's actually going to be having a Kong versus Godzilla movie review coming out here pretty soon on the Combat Republic. So stay tuned for that. Speaking of my podcast, I write and I do a podcast now for Fight Game Media. It's a website ran by Garrett Gonzalez. He is a really cool dude. He has his own show on the Blue Wire Network and with John LaRocca. And he asked me to come on board and write some Impact columns. Basically, I'm moving my Impact stuff that I was doing on my website, moving it over to their website, and I have a weekly podcast that's going to be on their Patreon, and it's going to come out every Friday morning. It'll be right there in your RSS feed if you're a Patreon subscriber. It's a $2.99 a month, but you not only get the Impact stuff, but they do WWE stuff, AEW stuff. We got MMA, boxing. John Moxley does a regular show on the network. We bring in Dave Meltzer every once in a while doing Q&As and things like that. Not really talking about, behind the scenes stories and whatnot with Dave Meltzer, but it's more about the history of the wrestling business, which is he's a great resource for that. So come on out, check us out at Fight Game Media, fightgamemedia.com, and subscribe to the Patreon and let them know that I sent you.
It's a good podcast, guys. He just kicked it off last week was your first episode, right? That you did.
Technically the first episode on the Patreon, but we did do a review for the YouTube channel for Sacrifice. So that was our test, and we passed apparently. So they asked us to come back and do a regular show.
Yeah, it's a good podcast. So you guys will dig it. So there's a few things we're going to talk about here, myself and Mike. You may have heard me already speak about some of these things with TW, but we like to have different opinions and all that, and different points of view with everything hot going on with Impact right now. So the first thing we're going to kick it off talking about, and I think I kicked off the cool fact they're talking about the same thing, but it's they made the move to Thursday. So we're recording this on it's a Wednesday, right? Is today a Wednesday?
Yep.
No, yeah. Okay. Today's a Wednesday. So my days are backwards as hell. I've been working a whole crap load lately. So, and my hours been all over the place. So I don't even know which way is up. I don't know whether to take a shit or wind my watch sometimes. So, so tomorrow is again, we're recording this on a Wednesday. Tomorrow is going to be the first episode where they're moving it to Thursday. And that's not the only move they got going on. They also moved the pay-per-view, and they moved Rebellion. So they completely moved the day of that. And then with Hardcore Justice, they moved the time. They pushed it up earlier. So, dude, this is a lot of moving. It's I can't help but to feel like it's a little. Some of it's probably out of their control. With probably moving to Thursdays, a little bit out of their control, right? Because they weren't, what's moved? NXT moved, right?
NXT did.
Okay, I'm not an NXT guy, so NXT moved, and so Impact's moving to Thursday, which I like it on Thursday. But then, you can't help but to look at the Hardcore Justice and a Rebellion thing and think this may be, we're armchair booking here or armchair quarterbacking here a little bit, but it feels like this probably could have been avoided to where it wasn't like, hey, guess what? We're moving dates, we're moving times. Like, it feels like you could have forecasted these things out a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So with NXT, the rumors had been out there for a little bit, but it wasn't really until the Matt Men podcast when they got a hold of the exact information and the exact date. They're saying, hey, on April 13th, and this was back in early March. On April 13th, NXT is moving to Tuesday. And they were pretty sure about that, but a lot of that had to do with the NHL and USA Network taking over the NHL from NBC Sports Network, which is kind of done. NBC Sports Network is no longer a channel starting later this year. So um, USA is going to prioritize NHL over NXT if that makes sense. I think NXT probably would get the better ratings, but NHL is going to get the better ad rates, and that's what's the most important
Of
thing.
course.
There is how much money advertisers are willing to spend. NHL is going to take the priority there, every day of the week. And so there were people on my feed telling me that no. Impact should stay and fight and stay on Tuesday nights. And I told them, I was just like, that's like throwing a rock at a battleship, right? That's,
Right.
you're not going to compete with, their channel because USA Network has what, 90 to 100 million, 90, there are 90 to 100 million homes, while Access is in 50 million homes, right? USA and NXT, they have essentially an unlimited budget. They can do whatever they want. Impact, we're going to talk about it later, tight budget, right? NXT, this big, beautiful facility, they can have cage matches, they can have ladder matches, they can do all these things. Right now, Impact is in this small little studio. They can't really do a whole lot in that studio. And so they had no choice but to move. They did the absolute smart thing. But honestly, I wanted them to be on Thursday from the beginning. A lot of people said that no, it should be Tuesday because they would want to avoid NFL competition. But historically, you know, Impact has been a Thursday show. They came on, they were on Spike on Thursdays forever, and then when they were in Destination America, they were a Wednesday show. But then, I think when they were on Pipe, they were back to being a Thursday
They're
show,
Thursday,
and
yeah.
that's when I was used to. Yeah, that's when I was used to watching them anyway. So I think it's cool. I think them moving to Thursdays is the right decision. Now with Rebellion, I'm going to go ahead and give them a pass with moving their date. They did the right thing by moving the date. And as soon as I found out that UFC was going on that night, and they were going to have Jorge Masvidal fighting against Kamaru Usman for the welterweight title, I was like, Impact has to do whatever they can, and they need to move the day.
Yeah.
But Impact announced their pay-per-view first, right? UFC did not have that on the books, so Impact scheduled their pay-per-view. So their mistake was just having it on Saturday to begin with. And I think the only reason they were having it on Saturday, maybe because it helps with their taping schedule, but AEW is having a lot of success on Saturday. So I
Right.
think they were trying to piggyback off of some of that success. And what AEW recently found out, which is the same thing that WWE, Eva has always known, is that Saturday is for boxing. Saturday is for combat sports. Saturday is for college football. Saturday is not for wrestling. And so AEW, they recently had their latest pay-per-view Revolution. They moved it to a Sunday night. It broke every single record they had. And I think now with Impact moving off of that Saturday, they're not going to go head to head with UFC. Just being on the same weekend with UFC is probably going to take away some people that don't want to spend money on both, or they're going to prioritize one over the other. And so they're probably going to lose a little bit that way, but they're not going head to head anymore. And I think they made themselves a lot of money. They made a better financial decision. Now with Hardcore Justice, they didn't know at the time when they scheduled it that WrestleMania was going to be another 2-day event. They had no idea. So they moved it up a few hours, which I think was smart because it's been recorded for weeks now. There was literally no reason. They've only announced 2 matches for it, and I think we'll get into it later. I don't think they're thinking it's going to even be a big show that people are even going to watch. So moving it up a few hours was the right thing to do, and I think they'll maximize their viewership that way.
Well, let's talk about that right now, actually, Hardcore Justice, because I was thinking the same thing. And honest to
Yeah.
God, it wasn't until I saw a tweet today where someone's like, I can't believe only 2 matches are announced. And I was like, you're right. And the funny thing is, all I could think of was the Knockouts scramble match with weapons, whatever it's called. I completely forgot about
Yeah.
Deanna and Jazz. So I was just like, so for me, when I'm looking at this, I'm like, well, they had a couple of Impact Plus shows this year that have been really good, but they were very, very loaded. A lot of people were on the cards, a lot of multi-man matches. We've seen almost every single possible match this year. I mean, they're just throwing all, it's a smaller roster than we're used to. People are leaving. They're not replacing them. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but it's I don't think, at least with this, there's a little bit of intrigue. You know what I mean? Because when we ultimately get this card, it's probably going to be a lot of matches we've already seen before. I mean, it already is for one of the two. Um, I don't know about you. I'm a little optimistic that we're going to see some kind of new faces here. I've been saying this the last couple
Yeah.
Impact Plus shows. I've been saying it. I was really disappointed when this set of tapings kicked off, because I don't know if you remember the vibe when they were recording in the Impact Zone in Orlando. Everyone always knew, okay, this is the first episode in a set of tapings. So everyone was always expecting this is the episode that's going to set the tone for the tapings. If there's going to be any debuts or whatever, we're going to get it this episode. Like, people always, that vibe was very much there when they were doing the Impact Zone stuff. And like, I took that same approach with this particular set of tapings. When this one came up, I was like, yo, someone's going to pop up, a new knockout. Someone's going to step up to uh, just appear out of nowhere to challenge the tag team champions. By that, I mean Fire and Flava. And it was just a lot of the same old. Like, it just, the episodes are starting to like really, really, really feel the same. So, I mean, do you have any optimism that we're gonna get this Impact Plus show, and we're gonna see some new faces, or they're just gonna hit us with some kind of surprise in one way, shape, or form, or you think it's gonna be the same old, same old?
I think if we do get a surprise, it'll be in that gauntlet scramble match, whatever it is. I think those are the perfect matches to kind of put a new face in, a new face that you probably are not pushing right away. Somebody that doesn't have to win the match. I don't know who's going to win the match and go on to Rebellion to face Deonna Purrazzo. I think that's the stipulation. If I'm,
Right. It
I
shocked
could be
me.
wrong. Yeah, so I think the winner of that match is going to go on to face Deonna Purrazzo. If it's either Rachel Ellering or Taylor Wilde, I don't think they're going to want to put Taylor Wilde in that match and then have her lose right away. And
Usually, a
then if she,
debuting person doesn't lose. It's very
no,
rare,
no, 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 very rare.
or
But
a
I don't think
returning
that.
debut, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think that either one of those are anybody that you're going to want to put in the title match at Rebellion. But if you're looking at the landscape of the roster, who else do you have?
Yeah.
Right. And so, unless you pull out the Gale card, right, you break in case of emergency. And
Right.
I would say that now is the freaking time. They don't really have anybody that's ready for that spot. And I think that, Gale would be the perfect person to challenge Deonna. I don't think that she's going to be in that scramble match. I think that'd be a waste of Gale. So
Of course.
I think that we'll probably either see Taylor Wilde or Rachel Ellering or both in that match. And either one of them will probably win and then go on to Rebellion to face Purrazzo. Um, I have been waiting for them to come in for a while. It does not look like it's happening. Some information came out today. Like, Gallows was talking about it today, but I've been thinking that GOD, the Gorillas of Destiny from New Japan, were coming in. They were in the States during the last set of tapings. They were not in Japan. They're constantly tweeting at Impact and tweeting at the Good Brothers for being fake Bullet Club members and yada yada yada. So I was thinking they were just setting up an angle, which Tama Tonga does it all the time.
You're right.
And I have heard nothing about them being at the tapings. And Impact they do a good job of keeping a tight lid on certain things, but then other things they're like strategically leaking because they can tell that the fan base is getting restless, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so that's why, like when Sean Ross Sapp reports on his website, according to sources close to the situation, it's just Impact Management saying, "Hey, can you leak this for me?" Right? Like fans are
Right.
getting a little getting a little crazy. They see that the Knockouts division is a complete mess. The tag team division has one tag team in it. So, like, can you let them know that reinforcements are coming? So that they leaked that out to him, and so I'm not very confident that God is coming in, but I hope that they are. And if they are, I would say tomorrow night would be the perfect night for them to come in, because honestly, nobody's watching Hardcore Justice. It's probably going to be me and a few other guys.
Yeah.
This Saturday belongs to WrestleMania. Even non WWE fans are watching WrestleMania. I'm probably going to watch the main event. I'm interested in that because I really liked it when it was on Slammiversary, so I will watch that this weekend.
What is the main event?
So the main event for Saturday is Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley.
They didn't add a third person to that.
No, so
Okay.
the main event for Sunday's WrestleMania is Edge, Roman Reigns, and Daniel Bryan.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I've recently been watching WWE pay per views. Like, I don't have the. I don't think you watch Raw and SmackDown either. If I'm
No, no,
okay, there's no way I'm gonna watch those shows. But
no.
I've been checking out the pay per views again, kind of enjoying them actually. Not hating them like I thought I would. But I saw where they added Daniel Bryan as a third person, and people were like, "Oh my
Just
god,
I,
you
I like Daniel Bryan, but they did it just for the sake of doing it. They didn't need to do it. Edge and
right."
Roman Reigns was the perfect main event. So, but then again, I don't watch Raw or SmackDown, so I only watch the pay-per-views because I used to have the network, but now I have Peacock, and so those are usually a pretty fun watch. It's like an easy watch for me. It's just
Yeah,
matches.
yeah. That's how I feel about it too. When I stopped watching WWE, there was two things that there was a lot of things that drove me crazy, but there was two in particular. One was watching the same matches over and over, the same people fighting over and over, and the other was insisting on everything was a triple threat, everything was a four way, and I see Impact going that direction, and
Hmm.
I'm not enjoying it
No,
because that's me as a fan. I'm straight up saying, hey, I stopped watching this other company because of this, and now they're doing this, and it's kind of driving me crazy. I was really shocked when they announced that scramble match for the number one contender because I'm thinking in my head like surely they're gonna do something new, like with the knockouts at Rebellion. I said there's no way someone from the Impact roster is challenging Deonna Purrazzo. I was like, there's no way, and I think there's a good possibility that someone gets added to the match because it's hard to picture. Alicia's not going to Rebellion to take her on. It's not going to be Susan. I can't imagine it would be Jordynne and Grace again. And Tennille is a heel, so I don't really see that. If Rosemary wins, I think everyone would be really happy with that. That would be pretty fresh because Rosemary doesn't even wrestle a whole lot.
no.
So
But
I think
the
people would be happy with it.
new eyes wouldn't care though. The hardcore Impact fans are like that because she's like a Impact favorite. But if you're like an AEW fan coming over to watch because Kenny Omega's in the pay-per-view, you're probably not going to be interested in that.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It really feels like these last couple Impact Plus shows and even some of the episodes of Impact. I've said this a few times. They're going like real hard on these cards, and it's hard to imagine what they have left for the pay per view that would have people really interested to watch. Because this is Kenny Omega was on one pay per view that was their second best in buy rate, with the exception of Slammer. I mean, not the exception. It was second to Slammiversary as far as under this new management, and probably even before that, buy rate wise. So you have to believe this one's gonna probably be third, but there's so many things like they could have done. They really could have drug out like Josh Alexander and TJP. Instead, they hit us over the head with it a night later after that really cool revolver match, and now
Mhm.
Josh Alexander's just a dude, and now they're trying to play this. Another played out WWE storyline is, oh, they're on the same team, can they coexist, and
Yeah.
all this crap. It's probably leading to a three-way. And every time you add another person to a match, it waters down what the match means and the storytelling and everything. At least my opinion. But uh, I want to transition to this real quick. I'm rocking my Reno Scum shirt today. I just so happened to be wearing it. To be honest, it wasn't a tribute or nothing, but the because that's one of my favorite teams in wrestling. So they were released today. I was looking at Thornstowe. Me and Thornstowe are pretty cool. So I was actually looking at his Twitter feed, and he was just tweeting about the move to Thursdays like earlier in the day.
Yeah.
So this was something that appeared to be. I talked with him a little bit about it, but I'm not going to disclose our conversation. But it seems like something that kind of hit him out of nowhere, and So they're gone. I'm disappointed about it because not because they weren't necessarily the top of the tag team division. They weren't, the main focus. Clearly, they never really got anything meaningful to do. But it's kind of like what we see with the Knockouts tag team division. That it looked like at one point we had all these teams, and now we have none. And it's starting to feel like that with the dudes. And you said, oh, there's only one tag team in the division. There really is. So there's obviously the Good Brothers. There's Triple XL. There's technically the Motor City Machine Guns out there. Um, there's Decay. Like there are teams. We just don't think about them because
Right.
it's all like good good brothers, good brothers, good brothers. Here they are. They're gonna beat everybody, and they're you know what I mean. So you can talk about. I'm gonna let you talk about that real quick with the tag team division, but I'm gonna even take that into the bigger picture here is that they're losing people, whether they're releasing them or they're leaving on their own accord, and it doesn't feel like they're replacing them. It would be different. So I'll take like this is kind of a odd comparison, but so when the NXT tried to sign Adam Page, like they weren't able to do it, so they had a plan B. They were like, okay, we're gonna take that money, we're gonna pay him and pay Killer Cross. What's his name? Karrion Cross now or something. I
Yeah.
think that sounds weak, but whatever. But so they paid. So there was a plan B, is what I'm saying, and I think traditionally we've seen like workers come and go, but there always seems like here's the replacement, and I'm not getting that vibe this time around. I just feel like people are just leaving, and there's no replacement. And then on top of that, like say you're following a sports team, so you're a Niners fan. Garoppolo goes down. Well, like someone obviously has to step into that role. Like, hey, you're the third string, you're the second string, or whatever it is. Like, you have to prepare to move into that role. And that I don't see that. Like, I see people leaving, and then I don't see. Okay, Ty is gone, so we're gonna elevate this knockout. Like, it just seems like everyone's in the same exact position, and that's why it's like just really boring to a lot of people. No one's just, with the exception of Jake something, maybe Josh Alexander, like they're just no one's stepping forward. They're not giving that boost to anybody. So talk to me about what you think about Reno, Reno Scum in particular, or just departures in particular.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So I'm a Reno Scum guy too. I had the chance to watch them here in California. They wrestle on a show called All Pro Wrestling out of San Francisco that I got a chance to go see a couple of times, and they're like two of the top stars of that promotion. And I've gotten friendly with one of the guys who helped book that show. His name's John, John LaRocca, and he has nothing but great things to say about those guys. And so I was shocked that they were let go, and I have no idea why. It doesn't seem like anybody got in trouble, or it can't be that, it can't be like a cost cutting thing because they're not really spending a whole lot of money on those guys. So I'm real curious as to exactly what went down, because they clearly thought that they still had a job earlier in the day, and
Right.
then next thing you know they're getting cut. Now, Adam Thornstowe, he's gonna be fine. He has like a legit job. I think he's like a surgery tech there in Reno.
Surgery tech.
So yeah, and so I don't know much about Luster the Legend, but I thought that
I think he has
their
his own wrestling school.
oh, he does.
That
So
was
their roster is thin as it is, and what they're doing is just making it even more thin. And they're removing two guys who the other people in the locker room liked. Like those guys came in and they lost every week, right? They never really got behind them, despite the fact they have this cool look. They're good wrestlers. I mean, are they the machine guns? Of course not, right? But you don't have to be. Like you have like a cool gimmick, you have cool gear, you look good on a poster. Like you can have like, if they made toys of Reno Scum, like those would be hot sellers. They would be getting, they would be the toys that the little kids want to buy to get beat up by the other toys of their favorites, right? So I think that they just lost a valuable asset in Reno Scum. I really do, and they failed Reno Scum, and they really should have got behind those guys, and they never really did. Now we'll never know what the full story is. I don't know if there's like a deeper reason as to why that happened, but it just doesn't make any sense to me on the surface. Now, you're right. They lose guys and they really aren't replacing them. Josh Alexander and Jake Something did kind of step up, but now Josh Alexander's he's just another guy, like you said.
Yeah.
Jake Something had a 1 week push.
Yeah.
And
Where's he
then
been? Yeah.
2 weeks ago he lost to Rhino, and now he's third fiddle to James Storm and Chris Sabin. Like he's like their helper, right?
Right. Should be the other way around.
He's carrying their bags right now when really and I'm a James Storm guy, and I know you heard my podcast. Like, I think James Storm should be co-main event all the time and fighting for titles and stuff. He's TNA royalty, if you ask me. So, but I think Jake Something should be kind of like that young guy that they're pushing, like their version, even though I know they look alike, but their version of like a Drew McIntyre, where they're really getting behind the guy. And instead he's just carrying James Storm's bags. So that's really disappointing. I don't really hear any rumors or a smattering of rumors or them being connected to any of the top free agents that are out there right now. Like Andrade is a free agent. He is a guy that can main event for Impact. He could be their world champion. I think if you sign that guy and then you put him up against Kenny Omega for the world heavyweight title, like that's like a 7-star classic, anywhere in the world. And I think that you could draw a lot of money with that. And I don't even think that they are even rumored to signing him. Gallows did say to Sean Ross Sapp that he is advocating on behalf of Big Cass to get signed somewhere, and he has a lot of pull with Impact. So that would not shock me to see him at Rebellion.
No, not at all.
That wouldn't really shock me at all. And in fact, I think that would be a good hire. I think he deserves another chance.
Yeah.
You take extra chances on 7-foot guys, right?
Yeah.
And so, if they brought him in, that would be great. But as far as tag teams go, it doesn't look like they're bringing in God. I guess that remains to be seen. Finn Juice is going to be part-time. So who else is out there? What you got AOP. I don't know what their status is. I think one of them wanted to go back to MMA. There's this independent team, I think, out of Chicago or out of the Midwest called the Besties in the World.
I knew exactly who you were going to say. Yeah. Besties in the World, yeah.
Yeah, good team. Worst fucking tag team name I've ever heard in my life. Like, that's got to go. If you're over 30 and you're a bestie, sorry, dude, got to cut it out.
So they wrestle locally here quite a bit. And the gimmick, I mean, I forgot. I can't remember what music they come down to. It's not original music. It's something from the like early 2000s, and they wave their hands with the crowd and everything. Like, it really works for them, but because there's best friends, like, it would be difficult to bring that gimmick forward.
Right. So they got to get them a new team name,
which would completely defeat the purpose. I should say defeat the purpose, but
no, you could do a similar type of gimmick and still come in and do something there. There's people that tell me they need to bring in the Ascension, and I'm like, no.
I like them personally.
Really? Yeah. Okay. So I know people did like them in NXT, but I just didn't see it. But if they could come in and do kind of what Reno Scum was doing, which was losing a lot, I could see that. Right. But so maybe you bring them in and you kind of have them down there on that lower tier. I personally just never saw anything in those guys. And so there are teams out there, but again, they're not really connected to anybody. I don't know that they're actually signing anyone. And I always, like you were saying, I look forward to when the new tapings are coming out, because I'm like, okay, who are they going to be bringing in to consistently replace all these people that they are losing, and they're losing people at a faster rate than they are replacing. Right. So now they're at like a talent deficit. To contrast with some of their competition, remove WWE from the equation. Ring of Honor signed every single one of their free agents from last year.
Yep, I saw that.
Re-signed them all. And that shows a commitment to their team, right? Impact, they lost the Rascals, which they knew they were going to lose for a long time. Taya Valkyrie, Madison Rain, different story with Madison, but lost Madison Rain. Ethan
and
Page.
They had to have known they were losing Taya. I feel like without any information, they probably knew the writing was on the wall there.
If I could have told them they were losing Taya, right? So we all kind of knew they were losing Taya,
right?
And they lost Ethan Page, and coming up now where there's rumors out there, Moose and Jordynne Grace are next. So, they're losing all these people at a faster rate that they're replenishing them. Well, who have they brought in since the beginning of the year on the male side? Taurus.
Yeah.
That's it.
Which
Like
we
they
don't even know that that's, I mean, it's a AAA guy. We don't even know that that's not really short term as well,
Right. And
you know?
yeah, and I haven't seen him in a couple weeks, so I don't know what's going on with him. They did bring back James Storm, so I'll give them that. So they lost like 4 or 5 guys and they replaced it with James Storm, who's kind of been in and out, and Taurus. So
Right.
um they they really need to overhaul the roster because they're sinking on that side.
And so we're gonna talk Moose and Jordynne Grace here, but I'm gonna say one more thing on Reno Scum. Um, I've always advocated week in and week out that from your triple excels to your Reno Scums to your Alicia Edwards, like if you don't find something at some point meaningful for a team or a wrestler to do, it's going to be really hard for them to connect with the audience. And I remember it was probably a year or so ago. It was Alicia versus Havoc, and there was this spot that Alicia jumped off the top rope and she got caught, and it was supposed to be this like big sympathy moment with the crowd. And because she had not done anything meaningful with the team other than just, I mean, with the promotion since just being Eddie's wife and stuff, like the crowd didn't care. You know what I mean? And that was a problem with Reno Scum. They kind of linked them with Ace Austin for a bit, and it worked. But I think the most troubling thing to me was the Good Brothers debut match in Impact was versus Reno Scum, and it wasn't a match where, I mean, we all knew the Good Brothers was going to win, but we also, when we want to, as fans, watch a match, we want to feel like the other team has a chance of winning. And watching that, you didn't get that. And they took on Triple XL a few weeks ago. Same thing. Like you're watching a match and you just know these guys are going to lose. They don't go into the match even. So my point was they were wrestling Reno Scum. At no point through that whole match did it feel like Reno Scum had a chance to win. And being the Good Brothers debut match, it was an opportunity to showcase, hey, this is one of the teams we have here already, and they can go with these guys. It was almost, I don't want to call it like a squash match because it wasn't, but it was damn close to it, and that was troublesome to me because I don't think you have a big enough roster to feed wrestlers to other wrestlers,
No.
you know. Um, so I kind of saw the writing on the wall there. But hopefully they land back on their feet one way or another. Like I really like those guys. I connected to them because I was at the set of tapings they debuted at, and I've been a fan ever since. So let's talk. We're talking about Moose and Jordynne Grace here. It almost seems like those are the next couple to go. Moose would be an insane loss because he's one of the few guys on this roster that have been around for a while. Still has ties to it being called TNA. He's always advocated for the company. He's always been a soldier for the company and Mr. Impact Wrestling. Him and Sammy Callahan, and Eddie Edwards are the ones that really have waved the flag for Impact. And Moose is one of the few that they have not shoved down our throat. They've done some really interesting stuff with him over the last year, but it's been very gradual. He doesn't wrestle on every episode. And it almost feels like the wrestlers who Impact. It's just the way it feels. James Storm is kind of an example here. It seems like it's the wrestlers who they know are loyal to the company, the ones that are going to be around for a bit. They just have them like meddling in the mid card to upper mid card, and the main event is taken up by the people who just come and go. And that's why we see like James Storm, who've been in the company forever, one world title run. Moose, no world title runs. These guys. Um, so let's talk about the potential of losing Moose, and we're gonna talk. We'll throw Jordynne Grace in there too. She did an interview recently. I don't remember who it was with. It seemed like she had one foot out the door in the interview, She
Yeah.
said very good things about Impact in the past, so I'm not saying it came off in a negative, like I can't wait to get out of here, but it was like it was given the Impact fans a realization like this is kind of a stepping stone company at this point. Like people are not coming here to stay long term, but you can provide a long term home for the right people, like Ring of Honor did, like you said. But it just feel like Jordynne Grace is the next to go, and it would be hard to believe that they're going to really do much meaningful with her, going forward. So talk about potential of losing these guys.
Yeah, so losing Moose would be catastrophic, and that what that does is it reinforces to the fan base that they're not really taking this thing very seriously, right? Because here you got Moose, who is a company guy, a loyal guy. He's your top star, right? And it took them a while to get him there. They had been building him up for a couple of years, and they finally, with this TNA run and then beating EC3 and then him showing out against Kenny Omega in the Hard to Kill pay-per-view, like they finally got it to where it's like, okay, we can give this guy the ball, run with it. And it took them like 2 years to get to that point, and they they waited until his contract was almost up to get him there,
Right.
right? And now he's there, and now they got to pay him, and I don't think they're going to want to pay him what he's worth. Um, and so that's usually disappointing. Chris Jericho says they got money, right?
Yeah, I've
The
heard
Good
him say
Brothers
that.
ain't cheap. Good Brothers are not cheap, right? Moose is worth Good Brother money, because he might not be a draw right now, right? Because he's been there for a while, and so you're likely to give money to that shiny new toy that's coming in to entice them to come in, as opposed to the guy that's been there, that's been loyal. But I promise you, if you pay the guy the money and you give him the ball and make him your top guy, you're gonna get that back. You're gonna get that money back tenfold, eventually. And Moose is the guy. And so if they lose him, it really is just a stepping stone company, and people need to come to that realization. And Jordynne Grace in her interview, I thought she said something interesting. She's like, "Look, if I stay with Impact, I will have less travel and I'll have some creative freedom, but WWE is going to pay you a lot more money." And so
Right.
for everybody that thinks that Impact's paying people a lot of money, they just aren't. They aren't, not compared to their competitors, right? And so they they're either choosing not to be competitive when it comes to talent, or they just can't. I think it's somewhere in between. They're choosing some people, but they can't for others. And so I think Moose is the guy that you need to choose to keep, and you need to pay whatever it takes to keep him, because you're going to end up getting that money back. But Jordynne Grace, I love Jordynne Grace. I think she's probably, she's the second best wrestler in the company. Every time she's in a knockouts match and she gets in there, the level changes, right? And she was in a tag match recently at Sacrifice, where it was her and Jazz versus Fire and Flava. She was a far and away the absolute best wrestler in that match. When she came in, the intensity just picked up a notch. And nothing against Fire and Flava, they're nowhere near as good as Jordynne Grace.
Mhm.
Jazz obviously needs a shot. Love Jazz, but she is not nowhere near as good as Jordynne Grace. And so they're going to lose a huge asset in Grace. I think everybody thinks she's going to WWE. Ring of Honor is probably in play there, because her husband Gresham is running the women's division there, and they are about ready to have a tournament. They're trying to stack
Right.
their women's division. And look, they got Sinclair money, and they're paying people good money to be there, right? They're paying like NXT level money for their stars to come in, and they're not working a whole lot, so it makes sense that you would want to go there. You're not getting $500 in a handshake, to work a set of tapings. I it wouldn't shock me at all to see her go to Ring of Honor.
Right. And when we talk about money, it's all relative because it's not to say that a company like Impact doesn't, pay their talent fairly decently, but when you're talking about they work 4 days a month or something like that, you know what I mean? You're not necessarily for every talent going to say, "Hey, here's your living wage."
Right.
And I think that's something that people don't understand. You know,
I think that's what happened with Karrion Cross. Like
right,
he came in, he was an unknown guy, and he heard that Brian Cage, who was kind of an unknown guy, but he was far more well known than Cross, was like making 6 to 7 times more than him. And he was blaming Impact for the fact that he was broke at the time, when really he was working, 3 to 4 days a month, and he had all those other days to earn his living wage, and he could
right,
parlay the name that he was getting from Impact into other dates and other gigs to make up that lost revenue. And he didn't quite understand that, and that's kind of what Impact is. But Moose is different. You pay Moose like a top guy.
right, right. Um, yeah, and there's been I'm not gonna like name names, but I know that there's a few stars within Impact that probably don't get paid the most, but they have been able to use the leverage to continue to find work on the indie scene where they have a lot more work now than they did before, and that's that is the kind of the name of the game sometimes, um, because some guys are paid per appearance, and it's like it's kind of like with NWA. Ricky Stark said something like, "Well, I made $1,000 a month in NWA," and everyone's like, "Oh my," making fun of the company, and I was like, "Well, if he's paid uh, 250 per day, um, and they do six. I think they would record like six episodes in a row in a set of tapings. Well, yeah, it does average out to $1,000 a month, but it doesn't mean they're not paying him his indie rate or
Right.
something. You know what I mean. So we're kind of getting off, or maybe I'm getting off track. We're talking money there and everything, but when you got someone like Moose, you got someone like Jordynne Grace. They look like stars, and that's one thing that I think Impact's been good about for the years. They were bringing in guys who really look like stars, and then when Anthem came in, I shouldn't say Anthem, like Scott and Don, we started getting some vanilla midgets here and there coming in. I remember when Ace Austin came in. I mean, now I think Ace Austin is great. At the time, I was like, dude, I don't see anything in this worth me investing in this character. Like, okay, he kind of does some magic stuff. I was like, he's just a dude. Like that's how I saw him at the time. Now I'm like, dude, Ace Austin's a major up and comer in my opinion. But uh, they kind of not doing the same like they did before, bringing in guys who really look like stars. Like I look at Jade Cargill in AEW. Like, I don't know your opinion on her, but she comes on the screen. I'm just like, dude, she looks like a freaking star to me.
Mhm.
You're not going to find anyone who looks like her in any other company. You know what I mean? And I feel like Jordynne Grace was one of those people in a sense. Moose is definitely one of those people. And as you start to lose, Cross was one of them. Like, you start to lose those guys, then it just becomes just a bunch of good wrestlers, and you got to have, Jake something's got the look, but it does feel to like, going back to what we're saying, but they're not replenishing the talent. Now, I have to believe that they are. I have to believe that it is coming. There's no way that they're just like, okay, we're gonna keep losing people, and cool, we're cutting costs. Awesome. Let's move forward with what we got. I have to imagine that's not the case. So I'm gonna talk Good Brothers here for a second. So you started. I've been wanting to really dive into this. So they bring the Good Brothers in, clearly pay them well. It's starting to feel like the Good Brothers got one over on Impact. Like, they bamboozled Impact. It's almost like they were like, "Hey, you guys pay us what we're asking for, and but we're gonna go work at these other two places that we want to work, that we actually really do want to work at." That's just the vibe I'm getting. I don't think this marriage with them is going to end well ultimately, and I said this from the beginning. Am I glad they're with the company? Like, yeah, like they really do give some star power to the company, and that's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. But you see that the way the company is clearly like pandered to them a little bit. Oh, push your podcast, which I don't think is good, by the way. Push your
No.
podcast. Push. Have you listened to Talking Shop?
Yeah, I was a pretty regular listener, but I quit like 3 or 4 months ago.
Okay, I didn't like it. I listened to some of it. It's not like, so I've always said like Vicky Guerrero is the worst podcaster I've ever heard. Like it's, I'm not saying they're not like bad podcasters. I just don't enjoy the format of the show, and I just don't. You know,
Yeah.
are they better at what they do than what I do? Yeah, probably. But you know,
They're not better. They're just more famous.
there we go.
Yeah.
So I just personally haven't enjoyed it. But hey, push the podcast, push your little pay per views, push your merchandise. You know, it was clear that they're like, hey, we're gonna let you do whatever you want when you get here. Just please sign here. That's how it like comes across. And now they're on AEW just about every week. They don't have they don't have the titles now, so there's no reason for the commentary team to be like, oh, Impact Wrestling's Good Brothers. Like they don't. They just like, hey, the Good Brothers versus something. They don't name drop Impact a whole lot. At least when they had the titles, you know, they kind of had no choice. But it feels like the Good Brothers are, they're not waving the Impact flag. Like what I said earlier was Sammy Callahan and Moose and some of these guys. I'll even throw Rich Swann into that category. Eddie Edwards, like these guys wave the flag for Impact. Like the Good Brothers don't. They just feel like they're AEW talents. And on the flip side of that, Thunder Rosa kind of feels like that too a little bit. Um, so it's not to say that's too far off. I mean, maybe it's just the way AEW presents their product. But what do you think about the Good Brothers' time so far? Do you kind of get that vibe at all that I feel like they've given them too much freedom, and that's why I'm saying I feel like it's going to end poorly ultimately. But what do you think about that so far? Do you think that's off base where I'm saying I feel like they kind of worked Impact here?
Yeah, no, I know, I totally agree. So they definitely, one of the reasons why a big star would sign with a small company would be some of the freedoms that you would get, right? And so they had to go above and beyond to entice the Good Brothers to come over. Little did Impact know, AEW never made the Good Brothers an offer because at the time there was heat there.
Right.
They were working through it. So the Good Brothers needed a soft landing spot to go while they were working on these other deals, and that was Impact. So they signed a short term, a 2-year deal, and that gave them a lot of freedom to do essentially whatever they wanted. New Japan was worked into that, right? The Good Brothers revealed earlier today that they've been talking to the Young Bucks since the moment that they signed with Impact about possibly coming in. They just had
Okay.
to work. They had to work it with Tony Khan, right?
Right.
Tony Khan was the barrier. It wasn't Impact. Impact was like, hey, come sign with us, be on our show, then you can do whatever you want, essentially, right? And we're
Yeah.
still going to pay you more money than anybody else is getting paid. So they always wanted to sign with AEW. They were supposed to sign with AEW at the beginning of the promotion, and they ended up re-signing with WWE for 5 years, and then they got fired, and so that's where the heat was. But it was always their intention to sign with AEW. The Good Brothers are AEW talents, right? They're just under a contract to Impact. They're going to be on AEW every week, and then one day their Impact contract's going to expire, and then they're just going to be on AEW. But right now, it's kind of like, technically it's Impact letting the Good Brothers be on AEW, but really it's, you know, the Good Brothers going to Impact because they're contractually obligated while they go have their fun on AEW. Um, and look, and if you're them, hey, they worked out a great deal, so good for them. Um, did they work Impact a little bit? Probably. But they made the best deal that they possibly could, and now they're getting big money paychecks from AEW and Impact. And then when New Japan opens up back up again, they're going to be getting money contracts from those guys too. They'll be probably doing a lot of tours over there. So, but the moment I started to see the Good Brothers over there, I was like, oh yeah, the writing's on the wall. This is where they always wanted to be in the first place. So,
Right.
you they need to start losing on Impact probably sooner rather than later. I would say.
But you have to beef up the tag team division. You can't feed them Reno Scum and feed them Triple XL
No.
to where they run through everybody. Because look what happened LAX. We ran through it. We beat everyone. The North. They say the North beat everyone, but the North just. I'm not gonna get on a tangent about the matches they were given, but um, there's going to be a point where Good Brothers, we have no one to fight here. I mean, why do you think people like Ty Valkyrie's like, I beat all these girls, I've wrestled all these girls 50 million times. If the pieces around you aren't strong or they're not fresh or whatever it is, like you get to that point, like what else do you want me to do here? You
No,
know
well,
what?
the Impact needs to double their roster size, but they just can't afford it. So
Right.
they're going to continue to burn through matchups quickly, and they're going to continue to fill time with backstage segments. That's what they do because they have a limited roster, and they can't afford to have a lot of people on the show right now. Tonight on AEW, they had 68 different people appear on television, right? 68 different people appear on television, and that's just scratching the surface of their roster. So people are like, well, why, why in AEW? Why do they have all these teams, and why are these top teams here are being kept strong? And they have these big winning records. It's because they have 68 people appearing on one show, and their top guys are all kept strong. They're beating these other guys, right?
Yeah.
And then those guys that are at the bottom are beating each other, and they get elevated, and then they're getting beat by these top upper echelon guys, right? It's a formula in play. They can afford to do that. Impact can't. Impact has like 20, 30 guys on the entire roster, and they don't want to get them on TV every single week because they don't have enough matchups to be able to do that. Now, if they start touring again soon, hopefully later this year, they could start incorporating local talents, right? That they don't have to pay trans to.
Right.
They just kind of live in the area and bring them in, and then they could start incorporating those guys and beating those guys. But right now, they just can't. They just can't do it.
Because they kind of had that formula a little bit where, okay, we're in Windsor, you're gonna see Aiden Prince on the show, you're gonna see Alexi Nicole, who I absolutely thought did everything asked of her. You know, they had her doing that silly gimmick show on Thanksgiving, and she did everything they asked of her. Didn't keep her around long term. Which Lewis interviewed her, not on the Impact Lounge, but on his channel, and I believe she said that she was working with something with Impact prior to the pandemic. So I think there is an interest in bringing her, but they had a couple other guys, El Reverso, some dudes that would show up at the Windsor tapings, and then you go to do the Vegas tapings, and you had some people show up. Uh, so it's like you said, you can bring some local talents in. You pay their per appearance deal. You can actually create the feeling of a bigger roster by
Mm-hmm.
just bringing more people in and paying them, per appearance. But of course, there's probably some revenue issues right now, which I'm not going to go into a tangent of how I feel about their YouTube channel. I do that quite a bit, but it's such a missed opportunity to really bring in some revenue because they're not creating content that anyone actually wants to watch. They're not creating content for the subscribers. They're just posting a bunch of highlights, and the people who already watch the show don't want to watch that. But I think there's a missed opportunity for increased revenue on there. That would really help with bringing those additional names in. The Good Brothers. I'm dating. I'm aging myself here a little bit. I'm pretty sure you're around my age. Like you've seen Napoleon Dynamite, right?
Of course.
Okay. So like there's the scene where he takes the girl to the dance, right? And he takes her to the dance and he's excited and he's like, and then they get to the dance, he's like, oh, you want to go over there and dance? And she just immediately takes off and goes with her friends.
Yeah.
It was like he provided the corsage. He gave her the ride. He picked her up. He gave her a ride. We will assume paid for the ticket. The stuff that guys do when you're taking a girl to a high school dance, and then you get there and you don't hear from her again. She goes hanging out with the people that she had initially wanted to go with. Um, so weird, weird comparison there, but that's really what I get with the Good Brothers here, and that's not
Yeah,
to say,
Impact they got cuckolded.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah, and they know it. They're just like, oh, it's like, oh, gee, guys, we're just lucky to have them, and maybe they're right. Maybe that's what they are.
right, and it's not to say that the Good Brothers don't enjoy their time in Impact, and I'm sure they do. Like I don't think they're when I say, oh, they kind of bamboozled me. I don't think it means they're showing up to work like, we fuck these guys over. Let's
Yeah,
come phone it in and half-ass it while we're here. I don't get that vibe from them. I think they are happy to be with the company, but I'm just saying there's a bigger picture here. And as you brought it up, they were probably talking with the Young Bucks early on, say, hey, if we can get over here, I think we can do this crossover stuff, you know
Well,
that.
they admitted that that was the case.
Well, yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, uh, I mean, if we could see Rich Swann appear on one freaking episode, or when that whole thing was happening with the Hard to Kill, Rich Swann and the Good Brothers. I mean, the Motor City Machine Guns never showed up. Rich Swann's not showing up now. No, no one is, and it's just so clear. It's like, hey, these are the only talents we have interest in. So that has to be a personal challenge, like to Impact. Who can we build up then? So to where someone's like, we want that. We want
Yeah,
that
but
person on our show.
yeah, but
You know?
then, if they build them up, they're going to get taken.
Yeah.
you know, so that becomes the issue. And I think what it's going to do is it's going to lead Impact to signing undesirables, right? And
Right. I
not
was just gonna
not
get
not
into
like
that.
yeah, not like bad people, but like, you know, nobody was beating down Brian Myers' door, right, to sign.
Right.
No one was beating down Sammy Callahan's door to sign. Matt Cardona had a cup of coffee with AEW, and they realized that it's like, hey, look, this guy just doesn't fit, right? So now he's in Impact. WWE doesn't want those guys either. So that's kind of where what Impact is starting to lean towards. So they're prioritizing those guys and paying those guys money because they don't think anybody else is going to take them, and that becomes a struggle. It's like, okay, hey, do we put all eggs in this Moose basket? But he is so incredible that somebody's going to want him and pay him a lot of money that we just can't afford to pay him. So maybe we'll get behind Sammy Callahan and the Major Brothers.
Yeah. And here's it's gonna be. It is gonna. This is a problem they're gonna run into. Clearly, they probably want to bring in new talent, but because you have AEW Dark and AEW Dark Elevation, which I don't like as much because I don't like Big Show on commentary. Um, when these independent stars are working these dates, and they're getting a handful of dates to work these, and they're getting that exposure. Why would, and I'll even throw the NWA and ROH into that. Why would someone want to work for those companies if they're getting like more exposure just working AEW Dark? And you can see that. I don't know if you watch NWA, but it's clear with these new episodes, like they're trying to replace Ricky Starks. it's they brought in a couple new guys, and they're not even close, you
Well,
know. Um, and they're going to run into that problem. They're more likely to bring in Enzo and Kaz than they are like the besties in the world that you referred to, or um, I'm trying to think some other. What's his name? Casey Navarro that appeared on the show.
yeah,
Everyone's like, dude, that dude's a star, you know?
he's been on AEW Dark ever since.
Right, right. They're more likely to bring in Enzo than him, because I
Yeah,
think they are going to get the undesirables, because there's going to be that one tier of wrestler that AEW doesn't have interest in, and it's that like mid card release from WWE.
hmm
And you bring up Cardona, you bring in Myers, which I like these guys, especially Brian Myers. Um, I love his work in Impact personally. I'm a real big fan of his.
he has grown on me. I've been impressed with him.
Yeah, he's been capable a lot more than we've seen from him in the past. But that is going to be that tier of wrestler that it's like AEW is like, well, we don't really have anything for this guy, because we're more concerned with like the real top level talent, and then like the up and comers that can become that top level. There's going to be that middle ground there that they're not going to have any interest in. And Ring of Honor's never had interest in those guys. They've always been, I'm not a real big MLW guy, but I follow enough to where companies like that, Ring of Honor, they're always looking for like, we'll bring those no name guys in, and let's see if we can get them to here.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's how Impact is going to do things. I don't know if they want to do things that way. I don't know, because what was the knock on TNA for a while is that we're just bringing in WWE guys, and we're bringing up washed in WWE guys. Like what has really changed from that thinking from when Hogan was around to now. Like that's still what they do. Uh, I was at the taping I talk about when Reno Scum debuted. I was at that taping where Alberto Patron won the world title, and I was just like, wow, they did it again. Like I just couldn't believe it that this WWE guy that no one wanted shows up, wins a world title night one. Like I was just like, oh my god. But not a whole lot has changed with that thinking, and that's where we run into it. We always say, oh, we want young talent, we want fresh talent, we want these new guys. I just don't know if those young wrestlers are going to be like, oh yeah, let me sign here, but I can probably just wrestle in dark and get more exposure that way.
Mhm.
I mean, dark's turned me on to a lot of talent that I didn't know before. You
Yeah,
know what I
I
mean?
have not watched a single episode.
Okay,
Yeah, but I do so, but I do follow some of the guys that work those shows, and they're always tweeting about it, and they're on there like every week.
but you understand, obviously, with the name Dark, they're like,
Yeah.
they're enhancement matches. But the interesting thing is, like, you bring in a guy or girl, and they typically have a series of matches over the course of several months. So you can tell there's a legitimate scouting going on of these people to where with the Impact Plus shows, we were getting a lot of local talents and stuff, but with the exception of like AC Romero and Larry D, I mean, who did they ever hold on to? And with much respect to those guys, because I love Larry D, I really truly do, especially he's one of my favorite wrestlers in the company. These were not guys that were like hot on the indie scenes that people were checking for. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But Impact was doing these shows with independent companies well before AEW Dark existed, but they weren't bringing those people in. Like they had Chris Statlander one time as basically a local talent. They just never brought those people in. But with Dark, they wrestle enhancement talent matches, but then you'll have a match one week where it's like uh they actually put two of the enhancement people against each other, and
Yeah.
that's when you were like, okay, they're looking at these two, and then whoever wins that match, you get the feeling, okay, they're that's who they like, and they start elevating them. You know, there's a formula there that works with the show. Like you feel like you're legitimately being scouted, you legitimately have an opportunity. You know, I think that's what we're gonna be. That's what we're going to be at with Impact for a while. Whether that's what the company wants to do or not is like we're waiting for those WWE releases every year, and then we're gonna pluck those guys. But you brought up Kaz XL earlier. I fully expect him to show up at one point. I think Enzo will at one point too.
Yeah.
I've always said that.
I hope Kaz does. Enzo, I could take it or leave it with Enzo. But Kaz, I think he deserves another chance. He seems like a good dude, and he's got his head on straight finally. So I hope he gets a shot.
Yeah, I hope so too. He's someone that you really could make a main event dude. You could really rehabilitate a guy like that, much like you did with Ethan Carter um, and guys like that. So I know at one point they were talking to Alex Riley, who I was a fucking huge fan of, honest to God, in WWE and NXT.
Oh, really?
I don't know, dude. I always gravitate toward those guys. Like, dude, I love this dude. Um, and I think they were talking to him at one point prior to the pandemic. So I know there was a lot of people they were talking to. Actually, we just got to see if they start. With Taylor Wilde, that was someone they were going to bring in prior, and now she's showing up. So we'll see if that happens. Let's talk ratings here a little bit. So depending on the week, the ratings are okay, and sometimes they're not at all. And there was a report came out that they did 38K, and then it turned out to be incorrect, and it was actually a bump from the previous week. But they're still having some. It's still a little rough
Yeah.
with the ratings at times. We talked about Pop TV earlier. Pop TV, they were doing 300,000. And sometimes more than that, and it was considered a bombed episode if it was like 270. Like what's the high they've had? I think 260 or something. That was the Kenny Omega episode.
That was 225.
225. Okay, so
Yeah.
see, they're not even getting those Pop TV numbers now from year to year. Um, I do strongly feel that people's way of consuming television and everything has changed. So I don't, we have to take that into consideration. But I'm sure they would like to see better from the ratings. I think you said on your podcast that 38,000 was probably Impact and 60
Yeah.
or before the Impact. I haven't watched before the Impact. I watched a couple of the matches on YouTube. Which one was I watching? I think it might have been Alicia versus Tasha Steeles, which was actually a pretty good match. Uh, they they kept name dropping Kenny Omega throughout much like Josh Matthews would do.
Yeah.
The AEW World Champion. That's what BTI is sounding like to me. Like we're just gonna hype a bunch of shit that's not with no relation to the match in the ring right now. But yeah, give me some thoughts on the ratings. I personally think the luster of Kenny Omega has worn off a little bit. I mean, I have to believe this Thursday episode will do well, but the shine has worn off a little bit because I don't know that they capitalized on it the right way. And then before I let you get to your point here, what I always say is when they did get all those fans in, those extra eyeballs, I don't think they put a good episode forward, and then I don't think there was enough of a I don't know if a payoff is the right word. Like they tuned in for the Kenny Omega segment, but there was nothing there. Like Kenny was just talking for 10 minutes and then the show went off the air. Like everyone was waiting for why did you do this on AEW and what and that didn't happen. He was just sitting there talking. And I think that hurt. That gave no reason. Like when you're watching a episodic television show, you're always waiting for that cliffhanger to okay, we're gonna tune in next week. Like they just didn't do that. But give me some thoughts on the rating situation.
Yeah, so the February ratings, they were really good. At one point, they had like 195,000, which was one of their highest rated episodes. I think that was the debut of Finn Juice onto Impact. And the month of March, man, they have just plummeted big time. At one point, they were like 116,000, which is a huge drop. This past week, they were at 148,000, which was up from the previous week. There's a lot going on. March Madness is happening. You got basketball, baseball, all these things are happening all at the same time, but ultimately they're just not putting on a product that enough people want to watch. Um, I I do agree that the television landscape is changing, and their ratings are not dropping at the same rate of their competitors, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
So
Right.
the year to year ratings drop, Impact is doing way better than the other companies, and that's kind of what you have to look at it. So is the overall number and the 1840 to 49 number that important, or is it the ranking among the other TV shows that's on? Is that what's important? And they're usually in that top 150, in between
Right.
100 and 150 into Showbuzz. Now, if they can get into that top 100 and sustain that, I think they could really make a play to possibly sell their television rights to a bigger network. Not, and I don't know that they want to do that. That's just me speculating.
Right. Of course.
I think I don't know that they want to do that. I think that they should at least explore the option, because if they get told no, they're still on access, right? They still have a really good landing spot. So I think it would be smart to try and do that. Now, what could make the ratings go up? Well, big stars is usually what drives big ratings. But they kind of blew it with Kenny Omega. Like you said, they brought him in for that one episode, that first episode. It was one of the worst episodes they'd ever done. And then for the next 6 weeks, he was just in his bus,
Right.
right? And then he got physical the week before, right? But for 6 weeks, he was in his bus saying nothing. And people got sick of it. They're like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, we saw him on the show and now we don't care anymore. And there's nothing else on the show that we wanted to watch per the AEW fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they have to build that trust back up into their audience. They need to get some bigger stars. They need to re-sign the guys and girls that they have. That way, fans feel confident that when they get behind somebody, they're going to stick around a little while. That becomes a little bit difficult to do that. So Rebellion is like probably going to be like the 50th reset that we've had for the company. I don't know that Kenny Omega's winning the title. I think that he will. And, we're going to see a big reset. Hopefully we see some brand new talents come in, and hopefully the roster gets replenished. And then I think they should start bringing fans back in. I I live in California. Right now we're in a state that's probably the most restrictive state in the country, and we're doing events at 50% capacity. Our dine-ins are 50% capacity. By June 19th, we're going to go up to 100% capacity. So I don't see there's no real reason why Impact has to be behind the curve on this and why they can't start letting fans in. I'm not saying they need to do it irresponsibly. They don't need to be jam packed to the rafters. Hey, they weren't doing that when before the pandemic. So,
Yeah, right.
but if they could get a few hundred people in a venue that's bigger than the little studio that they're in, I think that would be beneficial, and I think that would um, create a funner atmosphere for the viewer to watch, as opposed to the studio setting with nobody in there and the fake crowd noise, which I personally think they do a very good job with the fake crowd
I
noise.
do too.
Um, they there's other production things they don't do a great job at, but for whatever reason, their fake crowd noise, I think it's a lot better than WWE. I tried to watch the Hall of Fame for a little bit last night. It was god awful, right? So I Impact their fake crowd noise much better than WWE's. So, if they can get themselves into a bigger venue with some people around the ring and some people in the audience, and maybe juice up the noise a little bit, kind of like Jeff Jarrett used to do, we could probably start seeing them do some things. But they have an uphill battle right now.
I think they do a good job with the fake crowd noise. When they brought it for Hard to Kill, or what? I don't think it was Hard to Kill, but
It was hard to kill.
it
That
was
was the
Hard to
first
Kill.
one.
Okay,
Yeah.
it was more of a background noise. Like it was very flat, and now like
Yeah.
they've done a pretty good job with crescendos, and I had to laugh. It was probably about 3 episodes ago. I don't remember what the segment was. I think it was maybe the Good Brothers did something, and you just hear this piped in boo, and then it just dropped out, and that shit was so
Yeah.
funny to me because it sounded so bad. But for the most part, they do a good job. I think there's a lot of production elements about the show that are bad. Eric Young put out a comment, a tweet long ago. Oh, we got the best production team in the business. Like, if that's what you think, um, and granted, I can't do that stuff. Oh, actually, I probably know some of that. I could probably do some of that. Let me put it like that. I do have some knowledge in that stuff. But if that's your thinking, like we got the best team in the business, like that's part of the problem with the company as a whole. Like if you're just like, hey, well, our production element, playing the whoa whoa in the background, everything, dude. And I'm gonna talk about this every podcast you do. I hate that song.
Yeah.
I hate it. The song they used to have, I despised, and then when they came out with this one, I was like, dude, I like this song, and it's they play it so freaking much. Like, so I was watching on Impact Plus episode 2 weeks ago. Who was cutting a promo?
It was James Storm.
James Storm. So he cut a long promo. He's talking about Bob Ryder, all this emotional stuff, some deep shit. And in the background, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Whoa. I'm just like, how do they hear that? And like, this is a good idea. But anyway, so this song is playing for like 4 minutes straight while James Storm's talking. And then the next segment is Deonna Purrazzo talking. This song is still playing. And I'm like, oh my God. And this is like the first or second segment of the show. So I've already heard it to start the show. And then on Impact Plus, there's no commercials. So they go to the next match 3 minutes into it. Oh, we're going to commercial. And then it comes right back in. Oh, and like the song, I feel like I heard it for like 7 straight minutes at one point in the show. I'm just like, oh my freaking God. So there's some production elements I think, dude, are just so fucking bad. And it's clear when the dude left for AEW. There's a few people that left, a couple people that
Yeah.
left. It's very clear when they left because it's gone downhill in that sense. But the crowd noise is good. I hope that they always keep it, to be honest with you. But at like a maybe 25% of the volume it's at now, to where it's like white noise once there is a crowd, because even when there is a crowd at these tapings, like it still sounds empty in there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that is production, which that's one area I will say about this particular group. When there was fans, we could hear the fans better than how it had been for a while. Like the fan noise was always really compressed. It was like they just wanted us to hear Josh Matthews the whole episode, and that was it. So that's one area where this team has done better. But the one thing I'll say about bringing fans, I don't want them to do so. Like NWA they've done a couple episodes in a pay per view where they have fans. It's clearly workers and backstage workers, maybe some wrestlers. It sounds so bad because it just sounds fake. Like
Yeah.
it sounds faker than the fake crowd noise that Impact has because they're just like boo, yay, like it's not part of the fan noise is just regular dialogue between people. And there's all little things that create the overall noise, and it's just a bunch of boo, yeah, and it's like 20 people doing it. It sounds like shit. Um, so I don't want them to force it if it's not there, but it would be nice to hear something. It's getting kind of depressing.
Yeah.
And then you can hear with the commentary too. Someone's like, "Oh, the commentary team has no emotion." I'm like, "Well, there's no noise." Like, well, first of all, they're doing it post production, so it's different than being in the arena. But when there's no fans that you're actually feeding off of, like it's like you can hear it with D'Lo the most, like, "Oh my god," like forcing the emotion into it. So I'm with you there. I do hope that they bring 100 people would make a difference.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, um, and you kind of brought up earlier, NXT has the ability to do all these things because they have the bigger arenas. Like, yeah, they're very stuck in this like this studio space, and there's not a lot of give. I mean, all the backstage segments they're filmed in the same 3 or 4 spots. They say, hey, this is a bar, but it's clearly like a storage room. you, you know, there, oh fuck, Rich Swann was it was before his match with Moose, and he was like backstage, like stretching, and Eddie came and talked to him. Like he was clearly like in a storage room because they had like crap next to him.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, that's even for your world champion, you couldn't get a a little better of a setup for him.
Yeah.
So
The thing is they're in Nashville. There's like 10,000 concert halls there. There's got to be one of them that's open that they could rent out, once a month to do these tapings,
yeah,
you know. It's either lack of desire or effort or what or resources. I don't know, but they're pretty plugged into that Nashville scene, you'd think. I'm not asking them to go to the fucking Grand Ole Opry, but they could go somewhere there.
yeah. I just think overall, when the pandemic happened and they started doing empty arena wrestling, the thing I was always saying on my channel was I can't wait to see how they present empty arena wrestling. And it doesn't matter if you're watching the NBA, the MLB, the WNBA, WWE. Everyone put their own spin on it. Everyone's like, we're gonna present it in our way to make it work. And like Impact was the one company who, and I'll throw Ring of Honor in there too, but they weren't doing television for a while. They put no spin on it. It was
No,
just empty arena wrestling,
that's
and
it.
every
Yeah.
show felt exactly the same.
Yep.
You know, and it doesn't mean a breakout that okay, write a check and let's get a Thunderdome. That's not what I'm saying. But WWE had the forward thinking mindset, and they probably sat around in a group. Okay, let's shoot some ideas around. The Thunderdome wasn't something that just no one thought to do anything like that. But it takes some minds to sit around and be like, let's spitball here. How can we put an original spin on this? You know, so what could have Impact have done? I don't know. I don't know the answers to that, but everyone else figured it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we will see. Anything else you got on your mind, or that you want to say about anything we talked about?
No, man, I just want to remind everybody to listen to my podcast.
Yeah,
It's on fightgamemedia.com. The Patreon information's all there, man. $2.99. And me and JD have a lot of fun with that show, and it's going to be mostly a positive show. We're gonna talk about the news. If something sucks, we're gonna say it sucks, but we're gonna try to make sure that everybody has a fun experience when they come hang out with us.
Hells yeah. I dig your 49ers support the troops gear there. I
Oh,
got
thank you.
I got some Charger stuff like that.
Yeah, man. I get sucked into those every year. So I have like 3 years in a row where I have just different military gear, and I'll wear them all through the year until the following year. I don't know if they draft fucking Mac Jones. I don't know if I'm gonna do it again this year. I'm gonna be like, look, I'm protesting your Mac Jones draft choice.
It's possible. It's possible. I haven't kept up on too many mock drafts though, so uh, but outside the top three, I'm kind of like I don't really know what anyone's gonna do.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. But I think that's gonna do it for us this month, and hopefully we'll do this again soon. Maybe we'll be able to review some, Impact Plus shows, stuff like that going forward. We're just trying to we're sticking to one a month right now until we can commit to doing more. So hope you guys enjoyed it. And for Mike, I am BQ. We will talk to you guys next time. Peace.